Y'all ever been locked up with your sibling and fell in love with them? Just me? The movie begins in the home of Dollengangers, a happy family of 6 who all look kinda inbred. Corinne and Christopher have 4 children. They are Chris, Kathy, Carrie, and Corey. These kids love greeting their dad whenever he returns from his business trips. One night, Christopher visits Kathy's room while the rest of the children are sleeping. Since he notices she's feeling a little jealous of her mother, he gives her a jewelry box. It even has a Spotify player because he knows that Kathy loves dancing to Britney Spears. The happy life of this family didn't last though. On one fateful day, while Corinne and the children prepare to celebrate Christopher's birthday, police officers arrive instead of Christopher. They inform Corinne that her husband got into an accident and is now 6 feet under. Since Corinne is no independent woman, the family gets forced to sell everything they have to survive. Eventually, Corinne's only option is to return and be a leech to her wealthy parents. However, it seems they've already disowned and disinherited her ass. So Corinne and the kids take the train one night and journey to Foxworth Hall, the grand manor of Corinne's family. En route, she promises her children that she'll win their grampy's love back and reclaim her inheritance. Apparently, the old man is dying soon, so she finna grab that bag. She promises to make all their dreams come true once that happens. Kathy doesn't seem to care about their wealth. She only wants to live in their old house, together with the memories of their dad. When the family arrives at Foxworth Hall, the butler apathetically welcomes them in. Corinne introduces her children to him, but he doesn't give a crap because he's got dishes to wash. When they enter the grand hall, Corinne finally comes face to face with her mother, Olivia, an old hag. The atmosphere is intense as Olivia, strictly poised and prune, stares coldly at her daughter and grandchildren. She then leads them to a room on the 3rd floor after ordering the butler to take their luggage. Once in the room, Olivia immediately assigns the children's beds by gender. Chris and Corey will share a bed, while Kathy and Carrie do the same thing. She then tells them they aren't allowed to whine, cry, run, shout, and leave the room. An emotional Corinne tells her children to behave and obey their grandmother, especially if they don't want to taste her punishment. After that, Corinne and Olivia leave the children's bedroom. To prevent the kids from escaping, they lock the door from the outside. Chris assures his siblings that everything will be all right and that their grandmother isn't as mean as she looks. His positive outlook on life immediately gets dark after he opens the curtains and sees the windows are barred. The next day, Olivia brings food for the kids and reveals that Corinne got removed from their grandfather's will because of the abomination she committed. It turns out that Corinne married her father's half-brother. Yes, that's right. Christopher was Corinne's uncle. That makes the children a product of some sweet home Alabama, making them look inbred. Disgusted, Olivia doesn't hesitate to call her grandkids the devil's spawn. Since their grandfather doesn't know about their existence, the children can't leave the room as long as he's alive. Later, Corinne receives a total of 17 lashes, one for each year she lived in sin with her uncle husband. When she goes to see her kids, the 2 young ones try to hurt Miss Trunchbull, but she's too overpowered. Olivia makes Corinne show the kids her lashes. Olivia says she can only give the children food and shelter, never kindness and love. After that, Chris treats his mother's wounds. Corinne says the time she spent with Christopher is worth 100 whippings because the D was too good. Since their grandfather isn't aware the kids exist yet, Corinne still has a shot at getting her share of his fortune when he prunes. Moments later, Corinne tells the kids there's a narrow stairway leading to the attic. She then tells them to turn it into the playroom for the twins. After that, she leaves them alone to settle into their new world. When Chris tucks in the kids, he decides to sleep next to his sister, starting his symptoms for the Alabama 19 virus. The next day, they realize they gotta clean the filthy-ass attic. As days become weeks, and weeks turn to months, the children struggle to deal with their confinement and boredom. Kathy passes time by dancing in front of the mirror while wearing her gowns. Chris reads books and daydreams about becoming a doctor. Wait a minute, why can't Chris just body that grandma's ass and tackle the bitch? He be looking in his mid-20s. As for the twins, they spend most of the time making paper flowers as decorations for the attic. The only contact the twins have with the outside world is the barred window in their room. Meanwhile, Corinne continues her journey to win her father's love back. She even forgets to visit her children because she's focused on that bag. This forces her children to plan an escape route to get past Olivia and check if their mother's all right. Eventually, the twins start wondering if they'll even be able to touch grass again. Sensing they're starting to feel sad, Kathy and Chris read them a quote from the Bible to comfort them. So the children do their best to sacrifice and patiently wait for their mother to achieve their goals. While Chris washes Kathy's back later in the bathtub, they start thinking that their grandmother might have locked their mother up. They believe that would explain why they haven't seen her for a while now. The next day, while Olivia brings the children's meals, she catches Kathy and Chris sleeping in the same bed. She goes off because she assumes they were doing the Sweet Home Alabama dance in the bed. As punishment, Olivia destroys Kathy's jewelry box, which causes her to have a mental breakdown. Later that night, Kathy and Chris escape from the attic's window to try and look for their mother. They go through the rooftop and use a rope to get down. Unfortunately, they get forced to climb back up after the dogs bark and the housekeeper turns on the roof lighting. The next day, Corinne visits the children wearing a new dress. Although the twins are happy about seeing their mother, Kathy and Chris aren't. They confront her about failing to visit them for months. Kathy complains about the twins needing to socialize with others in order to develop correctly. They inbred as is, so they need all the help they can get. Corinne rejects the idea and even says that their attempt to escape almost jeopardized her plans. She then gives the children a choice. They either leave and get nothing or wait just less than a month for their grandfather to croak so they can get their share of his fortune. Kathy walks away while Chris decides to side with Corinne. Nah, this mom's stupid for that. Sometime later, Corey gets a pet mouse while the attic's window gets barred again. Olivia also catches Chris chatting with Kathy while she's taking a bath. Olivia admonishes and calls them sinners. Angry, Chris chases the fugly gremlin away. Later that night, the children panic after losing sight of Corey. Fortunately, they find him in a basket, sleeping with his pet rat. It seems he went to the attic to feed it earlier. When Kathy returns to the bedroom, Olivia corners her and locks Chris. After that, she goes batshit and cuts off Kathy's long, beautiful hair in order to make her look like a man. When the doors eventually open, Chris finds his sister in the bathroom, crying because she looks like Ellen DeGenerate. To help her out, Chris fixes Kathy's messy hair. Meanwhile, Kathy finally confesses her anger toward Corinne for abandoning them in the attic. Weeks pass, and the children start suffering from hunger due to Olivia's punishment. They start turning pale, sickly, and thin, especially Corey. It even reaches a point where Chris cuts himself to feed his blood to Corey so he can have something to eat. Eventually, Chris removes the hinges for their room's door so they can sneak out. During their forbidden trip, they see their mother's room. It's grand and filled with plenty of fancy jewelry. Seeing his sister about to explode, Chris calms her down, saying Corinne must have an explanation for everything. Boy simping for his mother, too. They see their grandfather and, thinking he's dead, decide to approach him. To their surprise, he hugs them both, but mistakes Kathy for Corinne. Old man's sussy for that. Kathy runs away screaming, and they return to their bedroom. In their bedroom, Kathy asks her brother what he thinks about their mother's luxurious room. It all ends up with Chris defending their mother, while Kathy curses her for her betrayal. In her desperation to leave, Kathy tells Chris they should escape and try to live on their own. Chris doesn't like the idea for now because not only does he doubt his capability to support his siblings, he's still hopeful about their mother's plans. Several months pass once more, and it's now wintertime. The children gather in the attic, and the twins are clearly sick. Then Corinne arrives with good news. She says their family lawyer will include her in the will the next day. She also says that there will be a party that night dedicated to her. It'll be her reintroduction to society. Despite the supposed good news, Kathy and Chris confront their mother for neglecting them. The children feel that the attic is now their prison, and no amount of gifts will compensate for the time she has abandoned them. Chris tries reminding his mother about his unconditional love for her, while Kathy simply tries to fight for what she believes is right. Corinne starts thinking her children are disrespecting her. She walks out despite knowing the suffering her children endured for months. This ugly hoe finna kill her kids. When Kathy and Chris sneak out that night, they see Corinne enjoying the party. She's with her new boy toy, their family lawyer. Feeling betrayed, Chris finally breaks down in the attic, and Kathy comforts him. The next day, Olivia finds the children gathering around an ill Corey. Kathy tells off her mom, and she gets slapped so hard, Kathy ends up in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Olivia tells Corinne to bring the child to the hospital, and she does. The rest of the children can do nothing but wait for news on Corey's health. Later that day, Corinne coldly tells her children that Corey didn't make it because of pneumonia, despite the doctor's best efforts. Since they still need to keep their existence secret, Corey doesn't even get a funeral. They had him buried hastily near the manor. What's strange is that outside, the housekeeper doesn't dig just one grave, but 4 of them. Then Chris discovers something sinister. He tells Kathy that Corey and his pet mouse died because of arsenic poisoning. It turns out that the powdered sugar cookies they've been eating for months contain poison. They think Olivia is behind it and believe they're no longer safe in the mansion. So Chris sneaks out that night to gather jewelry they can sell for money when they escape. He then sees his mother and future stepdad and discovers their wedding is tomorrow. The next day, the truth reveals itself. It seems it wasn't Olivia behind the poisoned cookies, but their fugly-ass mother Corinne. When Olivia delivers the meal to the children, she gets surprised that it's empty. Chris then drops the smackdown on the old lady. He tries to beat her up, but Kathy stops him. Before they escape, Kathy wants to reveal the truth to their grandfather. It's her way of getting back at Corinne. Sadly, they discover he's no longer in the house because he passed away months ago. They learn that their mother will still get disinherited if she and Christopher have children. So it seems Corinne never intended her children to get out of the attic after all. With that, the children crash their mother's wedding. Corinne, the ugliest bride I'd ever seen. They tell the truth to try and expose her. And of course, Corinne does her best to deny everything. Eventually, Kathy tries shoving the poisoned cookie into her mother's gaping mouth. Corinne dies after falling off the balcony and getting choked by her veil. Honestly, she looks better this way. After that, the children leave the mansion for good. The movie ends after an older Kathy talks about how they survived on their own. She's been dancing like a white girl again, and Chris is already a doctor. She also wonders if their grandmother is still alive. Honestly, F that old hag. This was such a effed up story. Like, how can your own mother do that to her kids, let alone sleep with her uncle to produce them? What did you guys think of this one?
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.